So Bits and Pieces is a screenplay I've been working on for 3.5, 4 years now. I directed a short film with the same title, Bits and Pieces. But it's about two women who find a dismembered penis in a cooler on the 4th of July is what the short film is about. And they just kind of happen upon this penis, and this penis in the cooler. So they really just like totally mistakenly find it. But the bigger pitch of the feature is much more complicated because we got to sustain something for 90 minutes. So it's more about a woman who gets sucked up into a multi-level marketing scam, and the penis in the dismembered penis in the cooler is loosely tied back to that. But I hate to say too much more beyond that, but it's a road trip movie about best friendship, and have been working on developing it with the company Neon Heart, who did Shiva Baby, and have been developing it with them for like almost 2 years. And it's been on quite a journey. And it's partially, I think, my perpetual struggle that I started in indie movies and we're trying to make it feel like a bigger movie now. We've decided we want it to be and feel bigger. And I get this note a lot that people are like, "Oh, you have such a great indie voice," which is an honor. But they're like, "But do you want to break out bigger? You want some more money?" And who doesn't want more money? So my current struggle is trying to find my studio bigger voice. That's my current journey as a writer.
I mean, I don't know anything about this industry, but maybe less dismembered penis movies doesn't scream mainstream to me. But no, I know with your execution of it's charm, and I've watched the short, which is so fun, and I'm a huge fan of Steph Barkley, so
Yeah.
you had me there. Now, was that done? Like you made a short and then you expanded it, or was that a proof of concept for the feature?
Yeah, I never in a million years thought that it could even be a feature. And I have to shout out both Steph Barkley and Ashley Race-Billers, who star in the short, for being the people who initially encouraged me to write it as a feature. Yeah, I truly thought that it was going to be a one-off short, but it has consumed my life now for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's a fun journey to be on, so it's okay.
Yeah, and you mentioned Neon Heart. That's Rhiannon Jones, right?
Yes, correct. Who also is DWW, I believe. Yeah.
No, she's conservatory.
Oh, conservatory. She went to AFI. Yes.
Yeah, she went to AFI.
Okay.
Although I don't know if she'll embrace it because she didn't have the best experience here. I don't know if you've talked to her about it, but
she's mentioned that, but I mean, film school is a tough beast, and I know this podcast is partially about film school. So
it is. Yeah, no, it's kind of the focus, and we'll get that. But I love that connection that across many different years you're working together, and that's her whole goal is female filmmakers, right?
Yes, yeah. I think everything that she's produced under Neon Heart has been directed by a woman, which is incredible.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, what a success early on with Shiva Baby. Like that's
totally
incredible. So very cool. And I hope that keeps moving forward. I know these things take a while and then they happen all at once, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And then you do so much stuff. Are you teaching at USC still?
Yes, I teach I mean, I'm doing so much teaching, except for this summer. I'm genuinely taking summer off to write, which has been really lovely. But in the fall, I'll be at USC, and I'll be at Cal State Long Beach, and I will be at DePaul, Los Angeles.
Oh my God, 3?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Are they all screenwriting classes?
No, I'm teaching some producing. I did one producing class at Cal State Long Beach last semester, and I will say it was like boot camp for myself as well. I really learned a lot doing it because I hadn't taught producing in a long time, and really put the students there through boot camp, and I hope that they appreciated it. Part of my feedback was that class was really hard, and I'm like, yeah, producing a movie is really hard. But I'm doing a like very kind of like introductory to producing class at DePaul in the fall, as well as just kind of like helping them with their internships. So yeah.
You're kind of the perfect person to talk to because you went to film school and, well, in a way, you've never left.
It's true. I feel like I'm back sometimes. I feel like I'm always learning for sure, because teaching is like another fashion of learning. I feel like if you ever feel like you've stopped learning, then that's not a good place to be. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that means you're a good teacher, because the best teachers are the ones that know that they're learning through the students, and the ones that act like they know everything and they're just preaching to students, not the best teachers.
Yeah, I try hard to not be that way. And I know every once in a while, sometimes it frustrates people because I don't like to give like dictatorial notes. And I know sometimes people are like, just tell me what to do. But the whole way I give notes is with questions. Like I just kind of ask like a million questions back to try to get people thinking about like where their holes might be. And some people love that and some people hate that. But yeah.
That is a good point. Yeah. You're like, I came to you for the answers, not the questions. I
Yeah,
have questions.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It reminds me, I mean, because you had Gil Dennis, right, when you
I
were here
did,
at
yeah,
AFI,
yeah, and
and
I also had Len Schrader
and Len Schrader. Yeah.
and Daryl Nickens, like RIP to all these people, but they
Oh,
were all
yeah, a
the
lot of
best.
RAPs. Now,
Yeah,
I remember Gil specifically because I would always sit in his class and TA it, and it was for all the disciplines. But
yeah,
I always thought it was interesting because when I would talk about how amazing he is and inspiring, and I learned so much, and then people would say, "Well, what does he teach?" And I'd go, "Well, he kind of gets up there and he tells stories,
yeah,
and then weeks later, months later, years later, you go, oh, that's what he was talking about."
yeah, totally, totally, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious,
that's so
like,
cool.
are there anything you've taken from your AFI teachers that you use?
Yeah, I feel like I remember Len's class the most because that was my second year. So I felt like I started to find my voice. I went to film school really young. I was 21 at AFI.
Oh my God,
I was one of the youngest fellows
that's
in
super
my
young. Yeah.
yeah. So I was definitely really just finding my voice. And I think also maybe even a little bit kind of like struggling to be like, can I write a whole screenplay? Because I came from a journalism background and those stories are very short, and all my creative writing before then had been like short stories. So yeah, it was a heavy boot camp, but Len was awesome. He was a less structured teacher from what I hear than some of the other teachers. He was very also Gil Dennis and like telling a lot of stories, but my favorite expression of his was like, you just have to turn your shit into ice cream, which I feel like is the best phrase about writing because you got to turn and turn. It's like I just started this conversation by saying I've been writing this script for like 2.5 going on 3 years. And sometimes that's what development is. Like other times I write something and I will sell it after like 2 drafts. Sometimes I think like there's a benefit to not thinking too hard about it, but sometimes you just go on such a journey of like thinking like you're going to try to make a movie for like whatever price tag you can do, like $100,000, $250,000, which is where I started with bits and pieces. And now we're like thinking bigger. So it's like being reconceived in a different budget level and all that stuff. So it is sometimes a huge, crazy journey. And then other times you just sell. But I think you have to be ready to churn and you got to churn a lot to get that shit to turn into ice cream.
That's great. You actually say that in your class? Churn shit.
I do. I have stolen that from Len, and I always try to attribute it to him because he was one of my favorites. I really really loved his class. But yeah,
I love it. I'm gonna quote it now.
yeah,
Yeah, and give it. I'll credit Len as well. So
yeah,
being that young, wow, I didn't. I always knew you were young. You present young, also, and you still look young. Which
yeah,
probably back then you were like, damn it, I want to be older, and now you're like, yeah, I love it.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm
but
trying, Chris. I'm trying to still look young. I'm like gripping my youth with like all my
oh no,
power.
you're succeeding. You are young. Although you just have a youthful spirit, which I love. So
Oh, thank you.
don't lose that. So you were a journalist, or you studied journalism, then went right into
I
grad school?
studied journalism and I also worked at the college radio station. So I worked for the local NPR stations when I was in college. I really thought I wanted to be Katie Couric at the time. But then I also started doing improv in undergrad. And improv, I will say, is like what kind of opened my eyes to being like, oh, what if you wrote more fiction? And what does that feel like? And I also credit improv a lot because I spent a lot of years doing improv here in Los Angeles with teaching me really strong storytelling skills as well as like joke crafting. And when to get out of a scene, maybe more than anything else. But yeah. So I did do some journalism in undergrad, but I still sometimes casually write for like LA publications because I love LA so much. But
Yeah.
I'm still definitely more of a fiction writer than a nonfiction writer for sure.
Are you an LA native?
I'm not, but like I moved here when I was 21, so I've been here a long time now. I won't say how many years, so nobody can
No, we
figure out
won't.
how old I am. But
We
yeah,
won't. Right. People can look up your credit and do the math.
yeah, exactly.
Where did you move from?
I moved from Florida. I went to University of Florida for undergrad, which at the time was like one of the top journalism schools in the country. I don't know what is considered a top journalism school anymore because journalism is in like such a state of crisis of its own. But
Yeah.
I credit that school as well with really telling me how to tell a story and like to quickly boil down to who, what, where, why, how. And I don't even think that's a bad way to like start your screenwriting journey either.
Yeah.
Especially figuring out how to answer the how. That's the hard part, but yeah.
The people that you were in journalism school with and your teachers and stuff, were they like, oh, you're a sellout, you're going to Hollywood?
My cousin is an AP writer, Associated Press writer, very talented one. He's built his whole career in the world of journalism, and he probably gave me more crap than my teachers there. Like for like 10 years of my life, he was like, when are you gonna make an honest living? But yeah.
And I'm sure there's parts of that journalism background that fed your screenwriting, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And I very clearly remember what I submitted to AFI. I wrote a short piece about women suffragettes, and it was based on a true story, and it was based on some true letters. And I'm currently on a journey of writing 2 based in true story films. So I think like all of that has helped me for sure. And I'm very attracted to stuff that like springs from real life. Like I once wrote a whole screenplay from like seeing a van on the freeway that said burials at sea. And then I wrote a script about a guy who does burials at sea who doesn't know how to swim. So so most of my stuff like stems from reality. But yeah.
I love that. I love that you could just see something like that and it inspire a whole story. When people say they don't know what to write, or they don't have something to write, like it's all around you if you just open yourself to it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So many stories out there. And am I wrong in saying that you've always kind of had the comedy, you know, bend to
Yeah,
your
yep.
writing?
Even that women's suffragette piece, I feel like had somewhat of a comedic voice. I sometimes try to write serious stuff and it just like doesn't work out. It just always people will like read it and they'll be like, "That's really funny," and I was like, "This one was trying to be serious." So, yeah, I think it's like pretty beat into me at this point, and like life is so serious anyway that it's like very fun to write comedy. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did that work at AFI? Because the reputation at AFI is very serious, a lot of drama, trauma, and
Yes.
comedy people are rare here.
I know. I felt that hardcore when I was at AFI. There weren't many of us, but yeah.
But you
Yeah.
find your tribe, and in a way, you stand out. People will find you, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, we're few and far between. AFI does feel like very serious filmmaking sometimes, but yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
really young. You come to AFI, and the average age is about probably 26, right? Mid 20s.
Yeah.
You probably felt older. Talk about that feeling of like when you're first here, those first few weeks. People can go through a lot of. There could be a lot of anxiety, imposter syndrome. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, so, part of it feels like I was like I had a wavering by like all creatives do. I definitely had some of that imposter syndrome. I had a lot of anxiety around partnering around cycle projects. I believe that's still the AFI model as well, which is what I love about AFI. I
You
hope
mean
it
the
never.
anxiety part or the cycle part?
Yeah, the cycle
Oh.
projects, both. But I hope the cycle projects never go away because of it's what makes AFI a very distinct film school, I think, between all other film schools. But at AFI, for those who are like new to the podcast, you have to partner. Everybody gets a chance to lead a project. Writers get to go first, and you have to partner around that person's project. I believe directors go last, and then you have to form a whole team. And you have to do that in your first like couple weeks of school where nobody really knows anybody else. So it's a
Yeah.
real grab bag. But that's also the business, is like the whole business is networking and putting yourself in front of people and pitching again and again and again, and just trying to get so comfortable talking about your story. So it's a great training ground for that, for sure.
Do you
Yeah.
remember that you had to pitch your first cycle to these classmates of yours that you didn't know very well?
Yeah, totally. It's so anxiety inducing. And I think it's hard for writers to ever fully let go of the anxiety around pitching, because it's a weird process. And a lot of us spend a lot of time alone writing. And I truly feel like I've only gotten like halfway decent at it in the last 2.5 years of my life.
Yeah,
So it takes a lot of practice. Yeah.
I totally agree. It's such an unnatural act for, stereotypically, screenwriters are a little more like reserved,
Yeah.
shy, not outgoing, not the performers. And people want in a pitch, that perform. Like if you're good in a room, you could be a terrible writer and have an amazing career, right?
Yeah, totally. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's such an important part. I feel like it's become more a part of the career of the writer's career because fewer people read scripts.
Yeah, I know. I know. But to me, that's what has made the short film so valuable. I'm thinking about getting ready to do like everything I now shoot. I think about what's the longer version. Like if I'm going to spend
Mm.
time shooting a short or shooting a pitch, I'm always trying to be like, well, maybe I'll write the longer version first and then go back and write the shorter version, because I think that's becoming just like such a powerful tool. People will always watch a short before they'll read a whole feature, which is like sad, but it's also this, I think, the state of the business right now. So
Yeah. So a big part of filmmaking, and it's infused into the AFI system, is this collaboration, right? You make these 3 cycles. You're forming a team, and working with people. Sometimes that's like the first time people go through that, like really
yeah,
having to collaborate. Truly, like especially a lot of the directors come in as writer directors, so that's a big challenge having to work with a writer. Do you remember like a significant collaboration that you learned a lot from, whether it was challenging or very fruitful?
yeah. To be 100% honest, it's not my favorite thing to talk about, but it's also part of my history, because I did the AFI thing of make the mistake or not mistake. It's like life is short, no regrets. But I dated my filmmaking partner for a long time. We were together off and on for like 6 or 7 years, and his name is Drake Doremus, and he's had a ton of success. But I think it's a little hard for me to talk about, because like our personal life is in some of his movies pretty deeply. So I'll always have this connection to him, because some of like our true story helped like really launch his career. But I think what was so beneficial to me, and I think what you don't avoid at AFI, is that you work so closely with your collaborators. And we made 3 movies together. We made three features together, and I got a chance to produce them. And you can't trade that experience for anything. Like we had really tough things go wrong and really tough things go right. The first movie I produced for him that I wrote is a movie called Moon Pie, that you can only buy for like $35 on Amazon to buy the DVD, or like $55, something crazy like
Wait,
that.
really? Why?
Yeah, and
Why is it so
like,
expensive?
yeah, everything that went wrong went wrong. Like SAG tried to shut us down. The person who financed the movie was in the mafia. Like it was monsoon season in Arizona. We were shooting in Arizona. We were working with kids. We were working with like 100 kids on a couple days.
Oh my
Like
god.
we just chose to make like the most difficult movie for our first film, and had never shot in Arizona before. So we're like not close to home. So it was really hard, but like it was like a second film school. And I now know how to deal with like all those emergencies, and I feel less afraid to produce my own work. And I
Mhm.
kind of can't trade that experience for anything.
Well,
So
so
yeah.
like this is actually a great example because what you all did with Moon Pie was the thing that I tell all these people that are graduating now. Like you have to figure out a way to make a feature as soon as you can, because
Yeah.
that's when you are taken seriously. Now you have a feature credit, whether
Yeah.
people see it or not, whether it goes to Sundance or not. Like you just have to get that. It's especially for directors, but it's very beneficial for everyone: producers, screenwriter, unlike a thesis film, which people will watch and then say, okay, what else? Where is your feature? Right.
Totally,
And I
totally.
remember hearing the stories about this movie, and it was like now I'm looking at the credits now. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You had all these AFI producers on it: Chris Ranta, Chris
Yeah,
Agard, Casper von Winterfeld, who sounds
yeah,
like a Baron.
totally,
Uh,
totally.
and it was like right after you graduated, or was it happening while you were in
It
second
was
year?
happening while we were in our second year. So the really crazy thing is like Drake didn't graduate, which is very of the lore of AFI in general, that very successful filmmakers like don't actually graduate. But
Like
he
Darren
went,
Aronofsky?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But he went back and I helped him graduate. And we shot a short film called The Shirt for no money, which I also helped produce a little bit so that he eventually could graduate. But he didn't initially graduate because we were making Moon Pie. But yeah, and thanks to Casper, actually, he's the one who was working at a kind of crazy company, and I'm sure he would probably like admit to the insanity as well, where like the financier was like using a little bit of a tax shelter, which is sometimes how you get money for movies, of like people who need to write off some serious money. So
Totally.
he hadn't the financier not read the script by the time we were shooting. So yeah, yeah,
It's kind of the best version that is just writing the check. As long as the check's
yeah,
clear
totally,
and yeah, you're not going
yeah,
to jail. But
yeah.
what was the kind of the thought behind it? Was it just that like, naivety of like, we made these cycle films. It's just a longer shoot. We can make a feature. Why not?
Sure. We were the two youngest people at AFI. Drake was a year younger than I was at the time of AFI. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And also AFI does a great job building you up. Like
Yeah.
your teachers are really tough on you. I do think that they bring a reality of like the business is going to be hard, but they also simultaneously are like, you have talent. Like you're here out of thousands of people that applied to this film school. Like why can't you do it? And then I think also really the power of the cycle projects, like you just said, like having to be on set and do all these different kinds of jobs. So you're kind of like, yeah, why can I not do this? And we also were lucky to be at the beginning of the digital revolution where equipment was starting to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper very rapidly. So I think that also helped. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And did it take a long time to finish, or did you?
No, it was pretty fast. We
Okay.
finished Moon Pie pretty fast. I think Drake very like wisely in his heart knew that we could do better. So we very quickly made another movie after that. That is also kind of very thanks to Barry Sabbath of introducing us to some young people at CAA who introduced us to a different financier who is not in the mafia. And then we were able to move to Spooner pretty quickly. But yeah.
So was it the fact that you made a feature? Did those people at CAA take you seriously?
Um, we'd finished that short film, This Shirt, pretty quickly, and that went to a bunch of festivals, and I think that helped more.
Yeah.
And I also think Barry's word helped us a ton, like Barry just vouching for us.
I mean, that does mean a lot in this business, right? Like people that
Yes,
other people respect, and at least
totally.
you're opening the door, and then you have to come with something that, with a script, or I assume you had that Spooner script ready.
Yeah, we had Spooner ready. It was a great era for indie rom-coms. Like similarly, the Zoe Deschanel one, it just was about to come out. And Eternal Sunshine had just come out, and so had Lost in Translation. It was like that era of like rom-coms coupled with mumblecore, and like God bless the Duplass brothers for kind of like having mumblecore go nuts and people putting movies on their credit cards and um all those other people I feel like we're a little indebted to too, because it was, even though like the economy was crashing simultaneously, then people were making a lot of indie movies. So I think that helps. But yeah.
Tax shelters.
Yeah.
Um, so you did Spooner and Douchebag like back to back, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But Douchebag was more of the breakthrough one because that went to Sundance.
I think that they both really helped. I mean, Spooner had a bigger budget and it had Matthew Lillard, and people to this day find that movie and sometimes write to me about it, which is very sweet. And I think that that's the lore and the talent of Matt Lillard, that people still find that movie because he's just so talented and he's kind of playing a different part that he normally plays in the film. And Douchebag was definitely thanks to Mumblecore for sure. I remember we watched The Puffy Chair and we were like, let's just go make something for nothing and let's use the power of improv. So we had a 60-page outline for that film, and our two actors, one of which is Ben York-Jones, who I find to be an incredibly talented actor and think that he should act more if he happens upon this. I hope he hears me say that. He's such a good actor.
Ben,
Yeah.
Ben,
Yeah.
act more.
Yeah. And Andrew Dickler, who's a really talented editor who had never ever acted before, but he had edited a ton of like some Christopher Guest stuff. He's in like that camp of people. And so I think it was maybe already in his bones, but we knew he is an actor that would just be great at improv, but maybe not great at lines. So the script was really tailored to them as people. So we knew they were going to be in it, and we knew that we would not get a lot of money to make a movie around two guys who are not famous but who are incredibly talented.
Yeah.
So our model was absolutely The Puffy Chair for that film. So
yeah, it's funny. I'm looking up Andrew Dickler now, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was the editor of Palm Springs.
Yes, he's such a good editor.
That's crazy. And but has he done acting, or is that he just forced to do that with you and Drake?
I think he has done a little bit more acting, but I think his passion is editing. I don't want to speak for him, but I think, I don't know, somebody write Andrew Dickler apart. He's really funny.
Yeah, Dickler and Ben York-Jones, and we have to get these people back
Yeah,
in front of the camera.
they're really, really talented improvisers, and they put a lot of their heart in that movie. So yeah.
So that's where that style started on Douchebag.
The like mumblecore type of
Yeah,
thing.
well, that kind of improv style that Drake then kept going with.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because Spooner is highly scripted. We didn't have time or money to mess around, and not everybody on that movie was a super improv actor. Matt Lillard's a great improviser, but I would not say everybody on that film was comfortable with improv. And we also had a couple of people that were like kind of starting to explode or already famous who were in that movie. And so we did not have a lot of time with them. Like we got Christopher McDonald, Shooter McGavin, who also is just like so great and so wonderful. And sometimes when you have people like that, their agent is literally like, they're going to be there for 4 hours and that's it. So there was just much less time and luxury on that film to improvise. But with the other one, we knew we had very little money, but that the whole movie just centers around these two guys. Like almost every scene is them.
Yeah.
And we had 2 cameras for a lot of the movie. So we're like, let's just roll and experiment. And yeah. And I know that Drake has carried that through many films. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was an experiment that really paid off, and it doesn't always work. And it's were you nervous doing that as a writer?
No, because I had already become a huge improv nerd. I was already very devoted to Improv Olympic here in Los Angeles. I spent many years of my young life on stage there, and I'm kind of really an improv nerd, which started for me in college. And it was kind of like the height of improv in Los Angeles. I hope that it's coming back a little bit, but there was Improv Olympic. UCB had just come here. We had Second City at the time, and Groundlings, of course. So like there was a lot of improv going on in LA at the time, and I spent a lot of hours watching it and was huge fans of people who I thought were really talented improvisers and had spent a lot of time performing it. So I was super excited that we got to do an improv movie. I'd love to do another one. I have a script that is definitely conducive to doing that, and I hope I get to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What is the key to approaching one of those? And I'm so curious, like there was some form of a script, right? Like a treatment or something, right? You have to know what scene you're shooting.
Yeah. My favorite obsession, but I think this is good for any writing. I love the book, The Actor's Actions, I think is what it's called. But it's making sure that you give everybody an objective. And I think it's like also the same power as giving all your actors a secret. And so if they're going to go into the scene without all of their lines, I think that they've got to know their objective. They've got to know maybe a secret that at some point in the scene they have to get to. And so that'll give your scene like automatic conflict. And then you got to like, there's going to be some plot beats that you know you have to hit. So I think just as long as you have those things going into a scene and you've got two people who love to improvise, like you're set.
And then what your role, like they're improvising, and then your role behind the camera, writing or directing, are you like throwing out prompts? Are you giving them lines? Like how involved do you get when you're directing?
Sometimes the toughest scene in Douchebag that we shot a couple of times is there is a fight scene in that movie, and there's a physical fight. And I think this is like where the business has evolved a lot, that we don't really we don't do physical fights or intimacy anymore on sets without a coordinator, right? And we were doing it without one. We were very low budget, and it was a different time and era where I think it was maybe more socially acceptable. I wouldn't want to do either of those types of scenes now without somebody who's more professional at both choreography or intimacy if I were doing either of those types of scenes. And God bless the fact that we have these people now to help us along the way. But that scene was really hard because there was no set choreography. And I think when you're doing things that are really and people are trying to improvise, and that was a scene where the actors desperately really just wanted us to tell them what to say. And we did, and we eventually did a fully scripted version of that scene, mainly for safety and to achieve what we were trying to achieve. So, yeah.
No, that's good, and also good to put it in context of like that period of time, and obviously that low budget of a movie. Can you say like what budgets you were playing with those first three movies?
Sure. I'm sure somebody will get mad at me for this, but at the time we shot it for $30,000, and the movie ended up costing around $50,000 when everything was said and done, which is just like pure insanity. And I think you only do that when you're like 23 or 24. We're like, yeah, okay. I don't know. I do it. I say that, but I do another one, but it would be hard.
No, but like I said, like I tell people to do that, do it once. Hopefully that, is a springboard to other things. But that's incredible. $50,000 is it.
Yeah, it's pure insanity for sure. And I don't think anybody ended up making money off that movie, but yeah, it was definitely, again, like very grateful for it. Feel like I learned so much, feel like I feel safe taking risks because of it. And I also feel like that's the movie that eventually empowered me to start directing, that I was like, okay, I survived producing complete insanity. I think I can probably direct. But yeah. Yeah.
That's true. You've gone like so far the crazy insanity way. So when you direct, I saw your short, and it's very composed, and
it is, yeah.
Yeah. So that's your style. You kind of finding your style. How would you describe your style as a director?
Yeah, well, Ashley and Steph Barkley are also two unbelievably talented improvisers and funny people. And whenever I know I get to work with people like that, I always take time for improv. And my favorite line in that short, and it's in the feature too, is like, look at my eyeliner. When Steph's character is talking about, is she really innocent? She's like, no, look at my eyeliner. I'm not like an innocent woman. I can't do it like she does, so I don't even like want to fully say the line.
No, I can hear her doing it.
Yeah. So I love taking time for improv. I love shooting with two cameras too. Like I would love to shoot bits and pieces with two cameras, because I am hoping to get comedians who are really excited about improv in all kinds of different roles, and that we get to play in all the different roles. So I really do love still taking time for improv, even when things are like heavily scripted. And sometimes having two cameras like really lets you do that on lower budget, or lets you do it for certain scenes. But because the movie is so ridiculous, and it is a heightened world of like two women who discover a dismembered penis in a cooler, I did very much want it to look like, what time and place is this? Like, what year are we in? Even though we're in present day, like the colors are really pushed and everything feels like just a little bit off. And so I think that style, for me anyway, is like pretty specific to that movie. And it's one of the most recent things I directed. I did another short last summer on the new iPhone that I won in a competition to shoot a movie on an iPhone, which was really
Oh, no way.
Also, yeah, which was also like fun and freeing to just be like, I'm just gonna make something for the sake of making something and shoot it on the iPhone.
Yeah.
And the 14, I won the 14 Pro Max. I know we're already on the 15, but both those devices, like I mean, Apple has made something that you truly can shoot a movie on. It's insane.
Yeah,
It's still blowing
the
my mind. Yeah.
the 14 and the 15, the
Yeah.
video, the quality of the video, and if you put an app on it, like the Blackmagic app, it's just like, what why are we bothering with, like,
I know. It's
Alexas
insane. It's
in the low
wild.
budget world? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So I think even for that reason too, like when you are in that low budget realm, there's like definitely some tricks you can do if you take the time to think about your shots and you really do think about the composition where all of a sudden it doesn't feel so small, even though you are like bits and pieces is two women talking in a car. So um but we got to do some really fun shots and really push the world. And how can you challenge yourself to do that even when you don't have any money is always fun to think about.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
When you're directing an improv, heavy movie, or making one, I should say, do you rehearse, or is that a bad idea because then you'll kill the improv when you're on set?
Yeah, I think it's really fun to take time. Like, I haven't seen kinds of kindness yet, but I'm really curious because I know that filmmaker loves to take time to rehearse with everyone and get everybody comfortable together. And I believe Nathan Fielder likes to do the same.
Mm,
I feel like sometimes comedians already in this town, especially like already know each other. And so if you've got that advantage going in, I don't know that you necessarily need a ton of rehearsing time, but people who don't know each other, it's like, yeah, I want to go play some improv games and make sure people feel good and that they're going to have a good time before just diving in. But yeah.
yeah, and feel safe, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
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 Um, and then, I know I'm stuck on this improv thing, but how do you use it when you're just by yourself writing? Because you have an improv background.
Totally. I mean, the power of yes and is incredible, right? Like, yes and, yes and, yes and. But I also think the really strong thing to ask yourself writing is like also the yes but, so that you
Mm,
are not avoiding conflict. Because sometimes in a scene on stage, if you bring too much conflict, it actually will shut the scene down because one player might start to feel uncomfortable. But in writing, especially in our second act, right, is like all we want is conflict. Like act two is conflict. So I think almost the more powerful question to ask yourself is yes, but yes, and then but what? But what happens then, basically? So I think that's always really helpful. And I love talking about the rule of threes. I talk about it always when I teach of like people need to hear things three times for it to even fully register. Jokes will work three times, but the fourth time it's not going to be funny.
right,
But
right.
the third callback, if you save that, if you set something up in act one, you call it back in act three, that's magic. That's magic in both like,
That's
yeah,
I
it
I
is.
love that when you don't even see it coming and you don't even think of it and you go, "Wait, that happened in the first 10 minutes." Yeah.
Totally, totally. And to me, that's magic both on stage and on screen. And that's a huge lesson I've taken from improv in general. And
Does that
um,
only work with
yeah,
threes? Like
yeah.
those callbacks that are written into it?
Oh, I think callback can just simply be set up and pay off. It doesn't have to be three
Okay,
times,
that's
but
that's what I thought, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But sometimes it's fun to hit it three times. Hit it in like act one, act two, act three. That also sometimes feels magical. But yeah,
True. Yeah, but within the
yeah,
moment, like the rule of threes is like, I don't know what it is, psychological, but it works. It's like you
totally.
one time, then you second time creates the rhythm. You then you expect the third time, but the third time is the surprise, and there you
Yeah,
go. It's just like it's so basic, but it works. Why? Come on, people, use it.
totally.
It's
I
right there
totally
for you.
agree.
Uh,
Yeah.
wow, we're the practical things you're talking about here, Lindsay. I love it. Um, oh, last thing I'll ask about those features, because you were producing, right?
Yeah,
And
and writing. Yeah.
writing,
Yep.
but the producing part, which wasn't your natural, right, training, at least at AFI,
Yeah.
you were probably learning while you were doing it and getting better with each one. You know, part like I know Drake, you know Drake,
Yes.
and I just can I'm trying to picture like, my God, how could I manage like having to produce? You have to manage that frenetic energy that is Drake, that ball of energy. Like, what was the hardest part, and what did you learn? I'm sure you became the Drake whisperer. What is the advice for not for him specifically, but for a personality like
Yeah.
that?
I mean, I briefly talked to Drake in the pandemic. That's the last time we spoke. I know he recently got married and had a child, and I wish him like so much the best. And I'd honestly, actually, at this point, love to see him again. It's been too long, and I feel like we'll always kind of be connected based on the films that we've made. And
Yeah.
but from his lips to God's ears, I've heard in general he's a more settled man than he used to be. I think we're all kind of like wild and crazy in our 20s, and neither of us are in our 20s anymore. But yeah, I actors love Drake, and I know why, because he is really good at making people feel confident and really good at letting people also explore and find things on their own. And I think that's like such an empowering place to be on a set. So I totally learned a lot from him directing wise. And then, you know, I had some producing help on both movies. It wasn't just me. And I think that was really helpful in learning a lot from other producers, and not just having me be his girlfriend and his producer, to have like additional rational ears of being like, we have to do this now. Or also, I can't speak enough about incredible first ADs, and having a wonderful first AD on set. And any like newer director needs to love and respect their first AD, because on Moon Pie we had a first AD that really liked to yell. And
Ooh.
again, it was like a different time and place. And I know for a fact that that first AD changed the tone of the set. And it was our first movie, and a first AD can really set the tone, especially with really young filmmakers who might be bulldozed by a personality like that,
Yeah.
versus and we didn't fully pick that person. Like, there were some other says in that in working with that first AD, versus the movies that we had a little more control over. We picked our first AD, who's so great and wonderful. It's a guy named Sean Vaughter that everybody should hire him. He's just so fantastic. And really trusting that first AD, I think, just makes your job as a producer so much easier. And I can't speak enough to the power of the relationship between a director and a first, and how important that is. So yeah.
I think that's great, and I think the directors don't talk about that enough in these kind of forums, talking about the craft. Like, that is such an important role that you rely on, and it's one of your closest relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important.
All right, let's take you back to film school.
Okay.
So you're at AFI and you did your cycles, but so second year, your screenwriters mainly are working on their feature scripts, right? But
Yes.
you did this crazy thing where you were like off making a feature as well. Uh, but what about like the actual, curriculum? Were there, what was the biggest like learning moment you had at AFI? Not moment, or thing that you learned about screenwriting besides, turning, churning shit into ice cream?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm jealous of people who are there now, because when I was there, it was very feature focused, and it was a little more old Hollywood than I think
Yeah.
from what I hear it is now. So we didn't, as screenwriters, we didn't get to focus on TV very much. We kind of had like one very brief TV forum, and everybody knows TV is the writer's medium. And I'm working on a show now that's a book adaptation for television. And then I just wrote a new pilot because I love TV. I've sold one TV show. I would kill to work in television. Writers are the master in television. So I guess my like one regret is like, I wish I'd gotten that experience, and I'm so jealous of all of you there now. And everybody should take advantage of their classes, and like, don't not go, because everything at AFI is so good. And I remember sometimes skipping classes because I thought production was more important. And I would say like, just try to go to everything. Like, you might be tired, but you're gonna like thank yourself for like showing up to
Yeah.
like every single thing you can. So those are my regrets.
Especially as the writer, so the screenwriters can be kind of siloed, right? And not interact with the other disciplines unless you do jump in the other classes.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. Yes, and I know that there's like some emotional turmoil of like, should I do a thesis and should I put the time into that? And like, I guess my only advice is like, try to do it all that doesn't drive you crazy. Like if you feel like you can handle doing it all, like submit one and then just like see what happens. Cause I did submit one. It did get picked by a director. It ended up being heavily rewritten. So it was like not what I submitted, but hey, I still got like the shot of having my name on like another movie and working with those people in like a little bit of a different capacity and like all that stuff. So I think like just every shot you can take, you should take it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. So were you in that second year, were you thinking of what happens after you leave film school and how you start a career?
Definitely not hard enough because I was on this like very lucky train that we were making a couple movies and we met enough people to be able to do that. And yeah, and I think like my other regret is like not, I mean, I think my teachers did shake me and tell me this, but like for them to be like, you also should like, you know, what's your next feature and what's the one with like only you? And filmmaking is so collaborative, but when you are trying to get that agent or manager, and I still love collaborating, and I have a couple of things that I'm working on with other people, and I think it'll always be that way because it's the only way you get movies made. But
Yeah,
the agent and manager often will be like, "What's just yours, so that I can sell that." So what only has your name on it and has no attachment, so I can try to sell that for you.
yeah.
So I think
Because
like
attachments,
also
I mean, just like technically, they just slow things down, right? There's other people involved that
totally.
have to sign off on things, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I mean, I also sometimes like write one for, I guess in my brain, like one for them and one for me. Like I have a couple things that I do feel are more commercial, and my dream for them is that I sell them and somebody like enormous directs them. Like that's my dream and hope for them. And then I sometimes write these little things for me, but then all of a sudden people are like, you should write them to feel bigger. But yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
uh, that's interesting. The advice that you're getting, and maybe it's just is it how the industry's changing and the market is changing?
Who knows? I don't I wish I had a crystal ball. Everything is so weird right now. Some people are, you know, there's like right now the argument that it's easier to make a $10 million movie than a $1 million movie. And I feel like that saying's been around for a while. I don't know if that's true because I haven't made a $10 million movie.
Yeah, who's making
So
these $10 million movies? I've heard that same thing, but
yeah,
like, I don't know who's making $10 million movies.
I know. But all of a sudden there's like murmurings that like that kind of budget range is about to come back. I would more, I just said I would make predictions, but I would more predict that I think indie movies are going to make a huge comeback. I mean, I just recently got to have a really lovely meeting with people that kind of know what's going on at Tubi, and at Tubi, like they're buying stuff that's already been made TV wise. They're just they're not. They might eventually be producing much more stuff. That it seems like they're about to produce some stuff, but the first like 3 or 4 shows that they bought had already been made.
So
And so
people independent making an independent
I
series.
I believe one of them was totally independent. I think the other 2 were maybe some BBC money or some British money in general.
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah. So the power of making things and making things for a price, I just think that'll never go away.
right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I know that it's happened a few times, and I've heard of a few other people that have done it, but it's interesting that to hear from the inside that they're actually looking for that.
I believe they are. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't work there, so
No,
take
no,
that
no.
with a grain of salt.
I would love to hear more about that, like what budget range and like what does that mean, a series, how many episodes, what's selling, half hour, 1 hour, so many questions now. But
Yeah,
um,
I think that their first 3 things were all half hour, kinda like dramedy genre. But yeah,
huh,
yeah,
interesting. Okay. To be continued. To
yeah,
be continued. I didn't
exactly.
even know I did that. All right. Was there like a very specific mentor or someone that was key in that, initial leaving school and starting your career?
Yeah, absolutely, Barry Sabbath. I can't speak enough of Barry Sabbath started my career. I still try to check in with him yearly. I'm overdue for a yearly meeting with Barry. Barry, if you watch this, I wanna hang out.
His office is
So
right over there. I'm
yeah.
staring at it. Yeah.
I still consider him my mentor. I think he's a brilliant person. I think he's incredible at story. I also think he's like the loveliest human. Like, again, like try to go to all your classes, like try to know your teachers, like know what their life, if you even can do this, and I feel like film school is like the rare case where you can do this, try to know what they're into. They're people too, and they love movies, and that's why, and TV, and that's why they're there. So I think like getting to know your people is so important. So
Yeah,
thank
they
you.
didn't just show up here, like, they have lives, they came from somewhere, and,
Yeah.
I think, I try to remind people that, like, Barry Savage, like, worked in the studio system, he worked at TriStar, and,
Yeah.
he knows a lot of people, and he's got
Yeah.
good taste, and yeah, and he also then he has that, history at AFI, and he's been so good at, like, cherry picking the good ones, the good film the ones that he knows are gonna go off,
Yes.
and, the talented ones, and so then he knows how to connect you to those people, and you know
Yeah.
yeah, he preaching to the choir. I'm
Yeah.
part of the Barry cult. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, Drake's a fan of Barry's because Drake put him in like crazy,
Yes. Yeah.
which I always like to show that clip, and it just embarrasses the hell out of Barry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, this might seem obvious, but like a key, so that's a mentor, but a key moment, a thing that you felt was like had a big impact on your career. Maybe we've already talked about it with these 3 features that you made while you were still a student
Yeah,
started.
I just have to, I'm gonna give my own self props for a second. I think part of the battle is like not giving up. And I feel like every filmmaker can feel this, that like the last 4 years in this business have been like really hard. And I think like continuing to find your passion and figure out where to challenge yourself. And right now I feel like the key moment in my career is that I'm still here and I'm still standing, and I'm glad.
Yeah. Yeah, that for sure. No, and you have so much going on, like not just the teaching, the responsibilities, but like so many projects. And you just said you're working on a new one with Joyce. Like
Yeah.
I still feel you still feel like that young like student energy, which is what you have to have, and it's because you love the process. You like doing it.
Yeah, totally. And but I mean, there's been some dark years where I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And I think you have to like dig deep and remind yourself, why you are here and what stories are the most important to you, that you are going to dedicate like multiple years of your life to bring them to life. So like what at your core makes you excited to pitch that story again and again and again and again, and what gets you out of bed in the morning and all that stuff. And yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, especially the pitching the same story again and again and again is such a crazy business because it could be 10 years and then all of a sudden that's the project that overnight just goes, and changes your life. Uh,
Totally.
you never know. So there was a reason you loved it to begin with, to write it and to spend all that time on it. So you should still love it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
What has been a favorite mistake of yours? Like a big mistake, big mistake, but a mistake that you learned a lot from? And don't
Yeah,
say Drake.
I mean,
Joke,
um,
we'll cut that out.
yeah, I think so. There's been some like casting things that I think were just wrong, but then like I feel very lucky that I got to watch that happen on somebody else's dime,
Oh,
and
right.
like know that that combination of people just like didn't work. um which is like a hard lesson to learn when you're like in the movie. So you just talked about rehearsing earlier on, and I think like sometimes this is a luxury of money, but sometimes it's just like the luxury of your own time, where you maybe sit down and work with those people, or make sure everybody has a meal together and just be like, is this gonna work, especially when people are strangers. So I've learned a lot from that. And then just like, I think this last short I made just also didn't work, but I think a big lesson in that type of stuff is like, I worked on editing it with somebody else who's a very good editor, and I'm about to do this hopefully before the summer is over, but I'm also about ready to go back through the footage myself. And I think I can't express enough to filmmakers too, of like, you think you know your footage, but you don't until you try to cut it yourself. And
Yeah.
if you can take the time to do a cut of anything on your own, you're going to rediscover a whole new movie. So I really need to do that with this short too. And the same thing happened with Bits and Pieces. I did a cut with somebody else. I submitted it to a bunch of stuff. It didn't get in. And these are costly mistakes. So I think like trying to learn these before you do this is great. And it wasn't working. It wasn't getting in anywhere. And I did the same thing. I opened up the footage and I'm like, I'm going to recut this short because I know it's funny. I know these two people are funny. I know there's a funny movie in here. And it was about picking new takes, and it was about cutting out the air and really making the comedy work and putting in stuff that the other editor just didn't pick. And yeah, that's a big one. Those
Well,
are
so
mistakes that I want to try to remember. I'm putting this on tape so I remember this every time. But yeah,
play this every time you're like you're
totally,
talking to an
totally.
editor.
Or
What do you think of?
finding the editor that doesn't care or isn't too busy when you're
Yeah,
like, I want to see another take, I want to see another take, I want to see another take. It's like your time, money, and energy too. And if it's eventually going to make the product better, like, don't worry that you're asking for that. Like, that's their job. Yeah,
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 yeah, and it's hard to figure out, right? It's like you don't know until you get in bed with them and you like go through the process, right?
yeah, totally,
Because again, people
totally.
can be good in the room and you can get references, but it's such a specific vibe you have to have with them. And we were talking about the first AD relationship, but really the editor director relationship is the most intimate, most physically close, right? If you're
Yeah,
doing it the traditional way.
totally.
Um, and taste wise, it has to be the most close. But you also want someone that has ideas, and you want someone like you said that's so excited about the project that when you come in the morning, they're like, "Hey, I worked on this overnight. I had an idea," and they're like
Yeah.
excited to do to take chances on it on their own. And it's yeah, it's tough to find that right person, but sometimes you just have to do it yourself.
Yeah, or at the very least, take the time to watch all the footage yourself. I mean, I got to praise editors too. I think they have an incredibly different job. They're the second writer of the film. You can completely change a movie in editing. You can change the whole story. Like, it's insane. Editing is also magic. But you knowing your own footage, like, you might think you know it when you left the set, but like, you don't until you watch it. Like, yeah, yeah.
So was that the lesson on those films? Was that you had not watched all the footage?
I don't think I had watched every little bit of it until I reopened it myself, and I was like, I know there's a good movie here. And I would also encourage everybody to like try editing once, just because then you'll be able to communicate with an editor so much better. And Premiere is also incredible and very user friendly. And borrow somebody else's subscription for a hot second and try it, because then I just think, especially if you want to direct, like, you'll be able to communicate with your people even better. Yeah.
I always say for young filmmakers that are thinking about going into it, that are just starting out, study editing, practice editing, shoot something, and just throw it in your computer and play with it, because you'll learn performance, you'll learn directing, you'll learn blocking, you'll learn writing, right? And
Yeah.
you'll learn the power of editing as you're talking about, like that, all the tricks and the reactions you can take from other shots, from other moments, from other scenes that can save something, or even like playing a shot in reverse, like I
Yeah.
love those little magical moments that only you did it in
Yeah,
the editing
totally.
room.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's magic. And for anyone watching, DaVinci Resolve is free editing software,
Yes.
and it can do basically everything that Premiere can do, basically,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you can color in it. So that's a great one. Get started, get hooked on it, and then go switch to Premiere.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great message to put out there, which is study editing, and you know, put all those editors out of work and just do your own stuff. No, no, don't do that. I love editors. I love good
Yeah.
editors.
Totally. It's a really hard job, and really good editors can save a film. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so key in comedy, right?
Yes, yeah, and I think that's the hard part too, is that, like, I mainly make comedy, and good comedy takes patience. And sometimes you, like, steal a reaction when somebody didn't even know the camera was on them, or
Oh,
that they didn't know that you'd started filming, and they're,
yeah.
like, actually not performing at all, and, like, that's the moment you needed to make something better. So,
It's the best. And then you learn like, oh, next time I direct, like let the camera roll longer,
yeah.
or start rolling before, way before, like cue the DP
Yeah,
before the actor even knows, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, you
totally.
learn so much in it.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so you've been generous with your time, but like let's just wrap
Yeah.
it up. Like bring it back to film school, which is, did film school change your life? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, that is such a tough question, and you're probably asking a biased person because I also teach at several film schools, and I'm very grateful for the work. It's like part of the reason why I can still live in LA. So I
Yeah,
love talking about story all day. I feel so lucky I get to do it. I think that there's like a lot of to think about is like what is your end goal and what do you want to do and what position in a film crew do you want to take? And if you like already feel like you want to direct, I think you got to also weigh like, does the cost of film school where I'm going to go cost more than it does to make a movie? And then I think you got to ask yourself, would you rather make the movie and then you leave with the movie? And then what does each film school get you when you leave? Like, do you want to learn how to write a screenplay and that's your main goal? Do you eventually want to teach? Do you want to have that master's degree to teach? Are you also going to go to grad school? So there's so many circumstances and so many questions to ask yourself. And I think like film school also is a lot about what you're going to put in. So do you feel ready to truly put in what you want to get out of it? Or are you at a different place in your life where you don't think you can put that much in and you need to make money sooner? So I really think it's like a very hyper specific choice. And it's a tough one. And I don't regret it. And I feel very lucky for having been at AFI at the time that I was. And I worked my second year, which gave me some scholarship money. Like I worked for AFI, which also feels like a lucky position to have had.
you did. You worked.
I did. I was TA money. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think you just have to ask. You've got to have that checklist, your own yes or no checklist. If you feel like the time sacrifice is worth it and the money sacrifice is worth it. And then being a kid who started in public school, which is what allowed me to go to graduate school because I went to a public university in undergrad, I got to espouse like, maybe that's a great place to start, especially if like you're not totally sold on film school yet. And maybe you can study more than one thing and you can leave not in so much debt that you can then go to grad school for film school. So yeah.
All good advice.
So you got to treat film school a little bit like a job. So I think that's advice too, is like, are you ready to go do the job of film school? But yeah.
Treat it like a job. That actually is great. Lindsay, this has probably been the most like amount of practical advice packed into one. I mean, you're a teacher. Thanks for spending this time. It's good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. This was fun.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the After Film School podcast. If you're interested in supporting the show, please reach out to us. For more information and to join the conversation, visit our group Telegram channel, After Film School Podcast, where you can ask follow-up questions and engage with our community. The link is in the description. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at After Film School Podcast. We truly appreciate your support and look forward to connecting with you again soon. With gratitude, the After Film School Podcast team, Chris and Renee.